but I'm a person, and I feel like, people will like you for who you are if you are true to yourself. And
What if I told you that in the middle of a packed tennis stadium, a billionaire offered a young woman $10 million cash, and she said no? Not after negotiating. Not after consulting her team. In 5 seconds flat, she looked him in the eye and turned it down. And what happened next didn't just break the internet, it broke something inside every single person watching. Stay with me, because this story is going to hit you in a way you are not expecting. It was one of those afternoons where everything felt electric. The desert heat was pressing down on the hardcourt, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and your lungs work double. The crowd was packed in tight, phones out, voices loud, but when Alex started playing, something shifted. People stopped talking. They started watching. Because what she was doing on that court wasn't just tennis, it was something closer to art. Her footwork was precise, almost violent in its speed. Her forehand had this crack to it, sharp and sudden, like a whip, and every time it landed, the crowd flinched in the best possible way. She wasn't just winning points. She was dismantling her opponent piece by piece, methodically, patiently, like she had all the time in the world even though everything was on the line, and you have to understand what this match meant. This wasn't some early round warm-up. This was the kind of match that defines where a career goes. Win this and you're someone. Win this the way she was winning it and you become something else entirely. Match point arrived like a storm, a long, grinding rally, shots flying back and forth, neither player giving an inch. And then Alex stepped inside the baseline, wound up, and ripped a forehand down the line that landed on the very edge of the court. Winner. Just like that, it was over. The stadium didn't just cheer, it detonated. Flags went up, phones were everywhere, commentators were practically screaming. Alex walked to the net, shook her opponent's hand, raised her racket toward the crowd, and you could see it even through a camera lens. She was shaking. The adrenaline, the relief, the weight of what she had just done. But here's the thing about that moment. While the rest of the arena was looking at her, someone in the VIP section was looking at something else. A man sat in one of those premium front row suites, quietly watching not the scoreboard but his daughter. Sheikh Khalid Al Rashid. Oil empire, real estate across 3 continents. A net worth that most of us can't even visualize. The kind of wealth where private jets are inconvenient, not luxurious. But in that moment, seated behind the glass, he wasn't a billionaire, he was just a father. And his daughter Aisha, she was pressed against the glass with her hands clasped, tears already forming in her eyes before the match even officially ended. To the outside world, Aisha is part of royalty, privilege beyond imagination. But over the past year, behind closed doors, she had been fighting something that money couldn't fix. Health struggles. Long stays in hospital rooms. Days where the future felt uncertain and frightening. And through all of it, through every difficult morning and every hard night, she had held on to one thing. Watching Alex play. Not because she was winning trophies, but because of how she played when things got hard. The comebacks, the way she'd fight back from the edge, the way she refused to fold even when every sign pointed to losing. Alex had become something more than an athlete to Aisha. She had become proof. Proof that resilience works. Proof that fighting matters. So, when that final forehand landed and the match was sealed, Aisha didn't clap politely. She turned to her father and whispered 3 words. I want that. Not the trophy. Not a photograph. The actual racket. The one still in Alex's hand, still warm from the match. Now, most fathers would have nodded and maybe arranged a meet and greet. Maybe a sign poster. But Sheikh Khalid didn't get to where he is by thinking small. The match ended. Alex walked toward her bench, probably thinking about ice baths and the next round draw. And then something strange started happening at the court entrance. Security personnel stepped aside. Tournament officials exchanged uncomfortable looks. A quiet ripple moved through the front rows of the crowd. And then he walked onto the court. Calm, composed, dressed in white traditional robes, flanked by security who looked like they weren't quite sure what the protocol was for this exact situation. The crowd noise softened. People started nudging each other. Something was happening, but nobody could tell what yet. He walked straight to the umpire's chair and reached for the microphone. The umpire hesitated for a second, then handed it over. The speakers crackled. And then silence. Real silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. His voice came through deep and unhurried. I am a father, he said. That was it. 3 words and the entire stadium locked in. Alex had stopped near the baseline, racket in hand, completely still. She didn't know if this was some kind of ceremony or a security situation or something that had never happened before. Then he continued, "My daughter has been inspired by you during her hardest days. Today is her birthday." The cameras immediately cut to the VIP suite. Aisha was visibly trembling, hands pressed together, tears already running. The Sheikh looked back at Alex, held eye contact, and then said it plainly. "Alexandra, I would like to offer you $10 million for the racket you used to win this match." What followed was not applause. It was not screaming. It was a gasp. A collective, full-body gasp from thousands of people at once. The kind that sounds like the air getting sucked out of a room. $10 million. For a racket. For graphite and string and a grip tape worn down by a single match. But this was never about the racket, and everyone in that stadium understood it instantly. He said it himself. It is not just an item, it is a symbol of hope. The cameras found Alex's face. Sweat along her hairline, eyes completely still. Processing. And here's the question that was running through every single person watching. What do you do? Because $10 million is not an abstract number. It changes families. It funds charities, builds futures, creates opportunities for generations. And Alex didn't grow up with money to spare. She left the Philippines as a kid to train in Spain at the Rafa Nadal Academy, one of the most prestigious tennis programs in the world. She lived far from home, battled homesickness, carried the enormous weight of being a symbol for an entire nation that is desperate for a champion. She knows exactly what $10 million means. She knows the cost of sacrifice in ways that most people reading the headlines don't. So those next 5 seconds were not just dramatic, they were genuinely impossible. 4 seconds passed, 5, and then she stepped forward toward the microphone. No agent in her ear, no coach on the sideline signaling, just her. She adjusted her grip on the racket, looked directly at the Sheikh, then lifted her eyes up toward Aisha in the suite above. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost quiet. "Sir," she said, "your daughter's love for this game is worth more than any amount of money." The words didn't land like fireworks. They landed like something heavier, something that takes a second to register before it hits you completely. She wasn't finished. "I can't sell you this racket," she said, "because inspiration shouldn't be bought. It should be shared." For a breath, nobody moved. $10 million, declined. Not countered, not negotiated. Refused. But then she did something that nobody expected. Instead of stepping back, instead of letting the drama settle into applause and a clean ending, she walked toward the baseline directly beneath the VIP suite, and she gestured for Aisha to come down. Security hesitated. Protocol and emotion went to war for about half a second. Emotion won. Aisha was guided down toward the court, her steps unsteady, her expression the kind of overwhelmed that you can't fake. When she reached Alex, something happened that the cameras caught perfectly. Alex didn't stand tall over her like a champion greeting a fan. She knelt. She got down to eye level. Equal. Present. Fully there. "This is for you," she said softly, and placed the racket into Aisha's hands. "But only if you promise me something." The stadium leaned forward again. "Promise me you'll keep fighting, just like I do." Aisha completely broke. Not gentle tears. Not composed emotion. She wrapped her arms around Alex and sobbed in the way that only happens when something reaches a part of you that you'd been protecting for a long time. And behind them, the Sheikh, a man who negotiates billion-dollar energy contracts, a man who has walked into rooms with presidents and prime ministers, stood wiping tears from his eyes. The crowd did not politely applaud, it erupted. A standing ovation that rolled through the stadium like a wave and refused to stop, because people weren't cheering for a dramatic moment. They were cheering because they had just witnessed something that almost doesn't exist anymore in professional sports. Someone choosing principle over profit, publicly, immediately, without hesitation. And think about how rare that actually is, because let's be honest with each other for a second. What would you have done? Most of us would have taken the money. Not out of greed. Out of reality. Because $10 million solves problems. It erases financial stress for generations. Accepting it wouldn't make you a bad person. It would make you human. That's the whole point. That's exactly why what Alex did feels almost surreal. She understood precisely what she was walking away from, and she walked away anyway. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. It trended on every platform simultaneously. Branding experts started pointing something out almost immediately. She may have refused 10 million in cash, but she had just earned something that no sponsorship deal can manufacture. Authenticity, trust, the kind of integrity that makes people want to stand behind you not because you're winning but because of who you are when the pressure is real. Sponsors reportedly started reaching out not because she won the match but because of the 5 seconds after it. And then something even bigger happened. Within 24 hours, word started leaking through financial and sports circles that the $10 million the Sheikh had offered and Alex had refused was not quietly disappearing. It was being redirected, repurposed. Reports emerged that Sheikh Khalid had pledged that same $10 million toward youth sports development in the Philippines, specifically in honor of Alex. Not as a PR move, not as a headline grab, but as a response to something he had never encountered before. A moment where his wealth met its limit, where the thing he most wanted to give his daughter could not be purchased, only given freely, and instead of being offered by that truth, he was changed by it. Because of one 5-second decision, entire tennis courts could rise in communities that have never had access to the sport. Thousands of kids could receive rackets, coaching, real pathways into a game that has always felt like it belongs to wealthier nations. Aisha left the stadium that evening holding that racket pressed against her chest. Witnesses said she wouldn't let anyone carry it. Not security, not assistance. She kept it close the entire ride home. And here's the irony that ties the whole story together. If the Sheikh had bought that racket, it would have been expensive memorabilia sitting in a display case somewhere. Because Alex gave it away for free, it became priceless. When reporters crowded Alex in the locker room afterward, microphones everywhere, asking why, asking if she hesitated, asking if she had any regrets, she smiled and said something simple. Some things are just for the heart. No branding statement. No rehearsed answer. Just that. And she was back on the practice court the next day. Not posting about it. Not scheduling interviews to relive it. Just training. Because that's the thing about people who act from real values. They don't need the applause to keep going. That image, a Filipina athlete who left home as a teenager, who built herself into a world-class competitor through sacrifice and stubbornness, kneeling on a hard court in front of one of the richest men alive and choosing kindness over cash, that image traveled. It reached boardrooms and classrooms and living rooms where parents were trying to explain to their kids what character actually looks like in the real world. Years from now, people might forget the score. They might forget the round, the tournament, even the year. But they will remember the moment. A champion on her knees, a racket changing hands, and a 5-second answer that turned $10 million into something money could never buy.